Hi, hello, this is me, Reagan, and everybody be quiet because I am typing. So this is why Dilbert has always been terrible. And in case you're unfamiliar, this is my explanation as to why.
Well, hundreds of newspapers across the country are dropping the comic strip Dilbert after racist comments by its creator, and now Elon Musk is coming to the Dilbert artist's defense. The LA Times, Chicago Tribune, Washington Post, just some of those newspapers saying they will no longer carry Dilbert.
Recall that Scott Adams said some pretty racist stuff. He suggested that if there is a percentage of the black population that thinks it's not okay to be white, this means you shouldn't live near black people or something like that. Well, Elon Musk responded to Scott Adams' comments not by defending Adams, but by saying the media are racist. They're totally fine with racism against whites and Asians. That happens to be obviously the case.
Nor is anyone protected by the First Amendment from private employers taking action that they deem appropriate. I mean, not to make it too personal, but if an employee of the Hill said those things, I would certainly hope they'd be fired. They're completely unacceptable remarks.
Niall Stanage, I appreciate your perspective and time. Thank you so much.
Dilbert is an American comic strip written and illustrated by Scott Adams. First published in 1989, it is known for its satirical office humor about a white-collared, micromanaged office with the engineer Dilbert as the title character. Now, we're all here for the same reason, whether or not that be a good reason or a bad reason. We all got the same question. So what the hell is wrong with this guy? What is wrong with Scott Adams? So in case you are unfamiliar, Dilbert is an asshole. Dilbert is selfish. He is arrogant. He is mean-spirited. He is constantly thinking ill towards others and talking down towards everyone around him as if he exists outside of human nature and it is to be rewarded some sort of success because of the world around him being so annoying. He is increasingly annoyed by just regular mundane things that everyone else seems to put up with like no problem.
I've contained my rage for as long as possible, but I shall unleash my fury upon you like the crashing of 1,000 waves! Begone, vile man! Begone from me!
Dilbert believes he deserves better. He deserves a better position at work because he doesn't work towards it very hard, and he just deserves it, right? Because he's Dilbert. He feels like he deserves a love life, but doesn't really respect women, or at least the women that he fantasizes about courting enough to actually do so. Dilbert sucks. Dilbert sucks. He's a quote-unquote nice guy. He is not even a good friend to his dog, Brian Griffin. I always thought that Dilbert was supposed to be a parody of white-collar office workers who never really amounted to much because of their individual lack of ambition. I always thought that Dilbert was supposed to be looked at like a person to feel sorry for, not someone you'd want to be, not even necessarily someone you'd want to work with or be friends with or be around at all ever. His life is empty and repetitive, deprived of the substance that everyone else seems to gain from that same existence. Other people in Dilbert's office seem very happy. They seem normal. Dilbert is not happy. He is not normal. He is special. He is Dilbert. Dilbert spends his life pestered by others consistently, or that being asked to do his job is somewhat of a slight to his integrity as an engineer. Like, he is too good for the position that he has, so why would he even bother to do his job anyway? I say these things about Dilbert because I loved this show, at least growing up. It's not some sort of hot-off-the-presses lefty take. I don't really have a bone to pick with this open and renowned racist. I say this because I've always had many thoughts about Dilbert, and now is my time to shine. This is my moment, and I'm not going to shut up.
What could it be? Art has rules just like anything else. If you can teach a computer to play chess, you can teach a computer to make a painting.
Thank you for converting an impossible assignment into something that will look like a personal failing on my part.
Nicely done.
Not a day goes by when I do not learn something.
Well, I know what I like. You're right. I don't.
Dilbert has been many things, too many things, about as many things as a comic strip in your local newspaper could ever possibly want to be. It's everything that Garfield was and is, but worse. I guess the marketability just wasn't there for this. So you can't really compete with the squeaky clean marketability of Scott Davis and his work. In the beginning, the comic strip is known for its satirical office humor and the mundanity of office life. How it can feel to be just a gear in a system you don't really respect or understand. Capitalism. So 1997, Adams received the National Cartoonist Society Reuben Award for the newspaper comic strip award for his work. That must have been like the who's and who's of newspaper comic strip artist celebrity at that time. I just can't imagine how packed that room must have been. Super interesting. Also, like the Reuben Award. What? Anyways. As of 2013, Dilbert was published in over 2,000 newspapers all across the world, in 67 countries and in 25 different languages. There was Dilbert fever all over the world. Definitely something that the creator of this comic strip would want. You know, you're like, yes, I got the thing. But lo and behold, fame and fortune can only last so long, and the demand... Sorry, my sleeves are very questionable. The demand for Dilbert is declining, slowly declining, steeply declining, exponentially declining. But at this time, in about 2010-11, it was kind of like radio silence. The Dilbert train has long trudged on. It's on its way to derailment. In 2023, just a mere few weeks ago, Dilbert was dropped by numerous newspapers, if not all, and its distributor because of a voluntarily published video that Adams published on his own accord. This isn't a leaked video or found footage or something taken out of context. This is like self-proclaimed behavior, almost like a call to action, if you will, which is very alarming, to say the least. Which it included comments about black people that were self-described as racist. He self-report, if anything. So, on March 13th, 2023, which is, I'm pretty sure, not yet. Yes. Wow. Okay. So, March 2023 is in the future. So, Adams plans to relaunch this strip as Dilbert Reborn on on a publication called Local, which is by everyone's favorite Dave Rubin, which is horrible, just horrible. I'm excited to see what will come of that. I'm sure we all are. Dave Rubin is not actually a conservative. He is actually 3 gays in a trench coat. By the way, that's just an aside, just in case you were wondering. The comic strip originally revolved around Dilbert and his pet dog, Dogbert, in their home. Just living their life, living it up, noticing things, making little cute observations about how smart and interesting and poignant all of the commentary that this white man has for the world. Of course, the whole world needs to hear about it, so why not start a comic strip about just like the random thoughts that come to your mind fleetingly, just like people do on Twitter nowadays. But I guess old white guys used to do this with their comic strips. Many early pilots or plots revolved around Dilbert's engineering nature, bizarre inventions, and his megalomaniac relationship with himself. He's very much a narcissist. Later, most of this action kind of moved towards the workplace, and the strip began to satirize technology, workplace, HR, company issues, that sort of stuff. The strip's popularity actually popped off around this time because of the workplace relatability and the themes which were familiar to a large, appreciative audience. People seemed to enjoy this strip as it was. Adams said that switching to the Dilbert from his home to his office was when the strip really started to take off. And for a long time, he stuck to that formula and to great success, spawning TV shows, video games, and merch. Any creator's dream, right? Well, like anyone with too much financial freedom and not enough personal problems, began the decline of Dilbert mocking the world around him for being slightly inconvenient to his tastes, to being something that is directly the fault of other people and needs to be stopped. Dilbert is a narcissist who believes that the world should function within his parameters. It is often doesn't really create conflict that needs to that leads to a good story. It just doesn't create conflict that relates to a good story. Constantly just noticing that things are annoying and having them not work out for you. At least the conflict needed to keep a comic strip about a guy annoyed at everything around him. There needs to be something else going on. Dilbert is a reflection of the creator more than the notion that, I guess, it's clear... Okay, let me restart that sentence. It's clear that Scott Adams is mentally ill. We know that. No one feels this paranoid about others if they aren't. So, in turn, we can assume that a lot of the traits that Dilbert has are things that Scott Adams doesn't want to necessarily change or inspect about himself, but things that he wants to gain praise for. When Dilbert began to gain criticism for mocking social and environmental trends, losing publications because of Adams' descent into the far right, more so than many other people in the comic business.
Scott Adams and his comic strip are not being dropped because of support for former President Trump or for conservatism. They're being dropped because of racism. And, you know, he has been really quite clear. I mean, even in follow-up remarks, he said, and I'm looking because I want to get this right, you should be willing to be racist when it is to your advantage. So he's not even really stepping away from that at all. That's why the strip has been dropped. That's why his income has taken such a hit, completely understandably. It's not to do with his backing of former President Trump. That's a separate issue.
Media analyst Norman Solomon and cartoonist Tom Tomorrow claim that Adams' caricatures of corporate culture seem to project empathy for white-collar workers, but at the end, the satire ultimately plays into the hands of upper corporate management itself. Solomon describes the characters of Dilbert as dysfunctional time wasters, none of whom actually occupies a position higher than middle management, and those whose inefficiencies distract from the actual corporate values that create productivity and growth and that do possibly good things in the world. Dilbert and his coworkers are often finding themselves baffled or even victimized by the whims of managerial behavior, but never seem to question it openly, never seem to understand what part of the system that they exist within. Solomon cites the Xerox Corporation's use of the Dilbert comics and characters internally distributed through pamphlets, stickers, merchandise, all sorts of different things that you can find. They usually look pretty funny and super cool and super interesting. But Xerox management has recognized that more gullible Dilbert readers didn't realize. They realized something that they did not. Dilbert is an offbeat, more sugary substance that helps the corporate medicine go down. It makes it just a little bit easier to swallow, a little bit easier to understand. The Dilbert phenomenon accepts and perversely eggs on many negative aspects of the corporate existence as a whole, and unchangeable facets of human nature, almost as if it is just part of Earth, almost as if the office is a part of human nature or nature itself, as Xerox managers grasped that Dilbert speaks to very real work experiences while simultaneously eroding the inclinations to fight for better conditions, is just completely lost on many people, if not even the creator himself. Labor unions have not adopted Dilbert as a character or insignia Leftists have never really latched on to him as something that we relate to, but corporations in bucket loads have rushed to link themselves with Dilbert. And why is that? Why do they feel so comfortable with this character in this world? Dilbert mirrors mass media's almost crocodile tears for working class people and echoes the ambient noises from Wall Street. Dilbert is almost similar in vein of different... It's almost like how the modern satirical aspects of The Simpsons no longer exist to satirize the world around us, or the world that we exist in, but almost to just be a caricature of itself. So where does the big change happen? Where does this big boom come from? The big change comes when Dilbert and his iconic white shirt and weird little tie turn into a red polo. And I could see this change coming in around 2015, the year prefacing 2016, one of the weirdest eras of our lives. And golly gee, I wonder what could have caused that change in Dilbert's characterization. What made this character visually interesting is now completely gone. He went from this to this. And I'm not here for it. Already not a very visually pleasing comic. Already not very funny comic. So here we are. It's not funny, it's not profitable, it's not visually pleasing, and at this point we're starting to see a steep decline in a demand for anything to do with Dilbert. And on the flip side, the creator, Scott Adams, is making an ass of himself publicly on any and all forms of social media that he has access to. And this is years ago. This is like 2015? So anyways, what made this character visually interesting is completely gone. What made the commentary about work culture interesting at all is long lost and co-opted by the exact part of society that Adams wished to stick it to. The man. Dilbert was adapted into a UPN animated television series starring Daniel... I don't like reading people's names. You can look it up if you want. There is all the characters here. Kathy Griffin played Alice. It was a perfect match. The series ran for 2 seasons from, I guess, 1999 to 2000. That's... Okay, yeah, that checks out. I thought it said 2 years, but it says 2 seasons. The first season centered around the creation of a new product that was called the Gruntmaster 6000. It was supposed to fix work. Super awesome. Dilbert's an engineer, right? Super smart, knows all the things. It was critically acclaimed and won a Golden Globe Award. Even though if you go on Rotten Tomatoes, it literally doesn't even have a rating. So what's that about? The second season was far and away, it was not received well. The serial format was compromised and then changed from it was changed from the serial format to standalone episodes, which was not received well by the audience, who was expecting kind of a season 2 of what Dilbert has been up to in the workplace. And they changed it to be more similar to the comic strip itself. People didn't like. And the network didn't want a season 3. So many of these plots shifted far away from the workplace and involved absurdist plots, such as Wally being mistaken for a religious cult leader and Dilbert being accused of murder. UPN declined to renew the series for its 3rd season, and then oh golly gee, I wonder why. Adams stated, "I lost my TV show for being white when UPN decided that it was going to focus on African American audiences," which he wrote this in Twitter in 2020. If that was true, I mean, you could probably verify that, and he can't. That was the 3rd job I lost for being white. The other 2 were in corporate America, which are unrelated. And that is just a weird thing to assume. And let's give him the benefit of doubt. Let's say he did But you do realize that you could probably sue over that stuff if it was true. It's probably not. Dilbert was obviously declining, and we can verify this with both the numbers, ratings, and commentary from the people who were running the show, because of its departure from the comfortable sitcom nature and format that Adams did very little to contribute to. The serialization and the creation of this comic are entirely different than the creation of the TV show. It even has a myriad of different writers. So the success of season 1 of Dilbert entirely hinges on Scott Adams not being heavily involved. And he probably doesn't like that. Companies cannot profit off of a show that nobody watches. Plenty of people wonder, like, where random Black-centric or Latino-centric, Asian-centric, indigenous TV shows, where they gone, just been passed on because of lack of interest, of getting them off the ground, or maybe even they never even got created because the people never even had the resources and able to syndicate their comics into thousands of newspapers all over the world. Some people aren't that lucky. But of course, Dilbert is that lucky. Dilbert is entitled to be that lucky because he's just so smart, guys. He's so smart because he's an engineer. So let's say Dilbert, he had his chance to succeed, and like many other mediocre white men that are not snowflakes like they thought they were, fall flat on their face and get publicly mocked for their insane views that they voluntarily project to the world. Like, you could have just kept that to yourself. As an early person, I guess in early 2006, Adam and United Media had been struggling to get a film adaptation of the comic strip off the ground. Adams envisioned the idea to be a live-action film with Dogbert and Catbert as, like, computer-animated characters. In a world where this did happen, it's a nightmare, because this isn't Ted. This is 2006. So film director Chris Columbus was in talks about being the director of the film in 2007, and also there's notable producers attached to this project, although it is cited that the project was too ambitious and didn't have enough funding. But what are you gonna do? In 2010, fast forward just a little bit, it was announced that the live-action Dilbert movie was actually in development, being met with mixed signals from Dilbert fans, fearing that the live-action format would miss the charm of the line art or would just be bad. And I personally believe that they were right to think that. There was many, the same producers, I think, were remaining from the TV show, if I'm not mistaken, with Phoenix Entertainment joining the producing team, according to Wikipedia's efforts, as well as every other source that I tried to find on this. There's not a lot of information on this movie. It's almost as if it was all kind of just in Scott Davis's head, and the idea was bigger and grander than was ever going to be picked up. There was some interest in possibly creating a movie, I imagine, with the Dilbert property while it was still in its heyday. But as other movies were steeply declining, as the Garfield movie and Garfield Tale of Two Kitties failed horribly, I don't think there was a lot of interest for recreating the same nightmares for children everywhere. And of course, Dilbert isn't necessarily aimed at children. It has characters that would appeal to children, hence why a lot of us grew up with this show. But it's just, there's no marketability there. The characters are unappealing. They're ugly to look at. They would not lend very well to a 3D format, as you can see in the second half of the intro itself. It looks uncanny. It's terrifying. There's radio silence for about 6-7 years. The project is never picked up by a major studio, and it is left on the cutting room floor with as little as a screen grab or a concept. It seems as if the idea of the movie, just like I said, piqued interest of a few investing parties and was dropped when interest moved on, or just dropped when Scott Davis began to make an ass of himself publicly. But in Faithful Day in December 2017, an interview by Mercury News, Adams said that it would be impossible to make the film after his public support of Donald Trump, which, arguably that could be true. I'll give him that. Well, I'll give him that. The live-action pilot, shot for potential series of Dilbert, remains as lost media, remains to be unfound. Adams has mentioned the pilot in several interviews over the years, but doesn't really give out many key details on the plot, cast, crew, production, or anything, almost as if it doesn't exist. In one interview, he did confirm that Dilbert was to be portrayed by a live-action actor, but he hasn't said who portrayed the title character for this pilot, other than him being described as an actor known for being fit for a starring role in a romantic film. And for some reason, I think that's Ryan Reynolds. Just in my head, I just immediately... Dilbert is Ryan Reynolds. I don't know why. That's what I thought immediately, but it hasn't been confirmed, and there's no verification for that. But in my head and in my heart, that's who it would be.
Nice.
In another interview, Adams confirmed that Dogbert was in the pilot as an animatronic puppet. And where is this puppet? Where is pictures of this puppet? Nowhere to be seen. The only detail he has ever gave about this animatronic is that it looked like it was done on the cheap, just like his art. Over the past year or so, Adams has done some reinvention of his own, going from a largely beloved comic artist or artist-writer behind the iconic comic strip itself to a political pundit that has been vilified rightfully for being a Trump apologist and a racist, a fascist, a sexist, any sort of ist, really. The career pivot has made him toxic, to say the least. And when you are that sort of toxic and that sort of icky sticky, companies don't want to work with you. Publicists don't want to work with you. Friends don't necessarily want to associate with you. And you become increasingly more isolated. It's not necessarily a positive aspect of trying to change people over time, but it is just what happens. And it's just being a part of a society. So Adams claims his once lucrative public speaking career has completely dried up. And after fielding several Dilbert licensing proposals week per week over the past couple decades, offers have gone down to zero. End quote. For years, I've been trying to make a Dilbert movie, but it is impossible now. End quote. On top of that, he estimates that 75% of his friends and acquaintances, mostly Trump haters, have shunned him. Hey, my guy. I thought we were supposed to stay the heck away. I thought we were supposed to stay the heck away, but I guess boo-hoo. He quotes, "At one point, I gotta do the voice. At one point, I actually thought that Facebook was broken because I wasn't seeing any posts from my friends anymore," he says. "I'm not even joking about that. Some gifts don't cost much." And this was a gift. That quote is a gift. Just thinking, just refreshing over and over again. Like, where is Larry? Oh, he's also unfollowed me, huh? So still, Adams has kept his spirits up and insists that he does not regret ruining his entire career. He says that he believes he is fighting the good fight by making his comics about a character more intelligent than him and that has more friends than him. I guess live vicariously. He goes on to say, I'm at a weird stage in my life where I have fuck you money, so I can do things that other people simply can't because of their economic reality. And in my opinion, understanding Trump as a technique is insanely important. You can see that a lot of people don't understand that technique and they're frightened to death. End quote. Okay, so that's weird. That's like a weird. It's a weird thing to say. I have got fuck you money, so fuck you. Like, what the heck, bro? Yeah, so anyways, like, when you've got too much financial freedom and not enough personal problems, this is what happens. You end up getting fuck you money. Great. Another quote is the country needed to be broken before it was fixed. The government had just been ossified, he says. And I thought that at the very least he was going to so I voted in favor of somebody as a destroyer of all the ways we used to think. And what's different about the way that I approach this is that I have a very high confidence that in Americans as a group like to break stuff and fix it. That's what we do best. Yes. Breaking things, possibly. Fixing things, not so much. So I wonder what was so broken about American politics that made conservatives pre-Trump just so in a tizzy. I wonder what had their G-strings all up in a muff. Could it be that Obama was president and it just made them upset? The facade that the disruption of Trump was enough to change the core of politics in any way while playing into the exact configuration is just exact comedy. Is that not irony? Is that not the antithesis of just understanding it all? Anyways, we're exactly back where we started pre-Trump. The ex-vice president of the previous administration is in office based solely off nostalgia, political nostalgia of the previous administration. If disruption or theoretical disruption was the goal, it's completely non-existent. It just didn't happen. As of right now, you can still read Dilbert for free. I recommend some random ones just to get your brain wondering, is this supposed to be a joke? Is this humor? This is your God? So, with all of that being out in the open, and all of that being said, what did you think about Dilbert? Did you watch the show, play the video game, watch this train wreck coming from far away for many years? If so, please just leave a comment down below. It has been very exciting being able to talk about this so openly for so long after holding it in for many irrelevant years. This has been Reagan, and I have been typing. Thank you so much for watching my videos, and if you like them, continue to watch them.